Hello, everybody. Welcome. Happy Tuesday. I'd like to say thank you for joining us and welcome for I'm repeating myself already, for joining us for today's hiring town hall. I am Sonya Llewellyn, the Director of Program Development here at 501c Services. And I'm going to introduce you to our panel of experts that are here to share their best practices and creative ideas to help us all in this hiring crisis that so many of us are experiencing. So joining us today is Julie Gilbertson, Jerry Montgomery, and Benjamin. And I'm going to have them say a little bit about themselves. So let's start with you, Julie.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. As Sonya said, I'm Julie Gilbertson, and I'm the Senior Resources Manager here at 501 Services. I'm delighted to be here with you all today. And I want to share that I have almost 28 years previous experience in the nonprofit world as a Chief Human Resources Officer. So you definitely have a lot of empathy for you on this topic.
And Jerry Montgomery, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, sure. I'm Jerry Montgomery, and I am a senior talent acquisition consultant with Benjamin Freedman's organization, Weiser Innovations. I'm a relative newcomer to nonprofit world. I've had a couple of assignments here, but previous to nonprofit, I worked in the for-profit world, lots of startup companies in Silicon Valley and in Seattle. I did some foundation work with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for a bit as well. So I am so happy to be doing most of my work in the nonprofit world now, because it's kind of where my heart is, and some of where my ideas are transferable from the for-profit world. But there's some things that the nonprofit world has strong advantages over that I'll probably talk about throughout this.
Thank you so much. Benjamin, last but certainly not least.
Well, thank you. And to echo your sentiment, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us as well, taking time out of their day. I know a lot of people are just trying to finish stuff up so they can enjoy a stress-free Thanksgiving next week. This is probably my 8th or 9th webcast with 501c, and I appreciate the partnership. For those who don't know me, my background, I actually started in the nonprofit world over 25 years ago, and being able to now work in what I'm passionate for, which is talent acquisition, and apply it to mission-driven organizations. It's just cool waking up and going to work in the morning. It's just an awesome privilege to be in this position and to be able to engage in, helping build capacity.
Thank you so much. And I do want to shout out to the man behind the curtain, and that's Max Smith. He is the director of marketing for our company, 501c Services. So thanks, Mac, for all your help. Okay, so before we jump into this really important topic, I'd like to tell you a little bit about 501c Services. We are a 40-year-old company that provides HR services and unemployment outsourcing for over 3,000 nonprofits across the world. Our programs include 501c Agencies Trust, which offers a comprehensive suite of risk management services and tax avoidance solutions for all of our 501c3 nonprofit members. We also have HR services, which if you're part of the trust, you get. It's also a standalone product. But HR services is a high-touch, confidential resource. We are not a call center, to help walk nonprofits of all shapes and sizes, just like yours, through common and some very uncommon situations that come up. So we would love to be a part of what you do every day. And many of you on today's webcast are already working with us, and I just want to do a shout out and say thank you. So thank you very much for letting us be a small part of what you do every day. All right, quickly, housekeeping. Everybody is on mute. However, we want this to be as interactive as possible. So if you have questions, comments, suggestions, best practices, anything that you'd like to share, either with us privately as the panel, or through the, and that would come through the question box, or through the chat. And we have opened up the chat feature this webcast, and we're going to pepper a few things throughout. And if you, like I said, if you've got comments or best practices you want to share, please share that in the chat box. And we've got some polls so that we can get some real-time information from you all and share that. This webcast is certified for both HRCI and SHRM recertification credits. We also have a certificate of participation if you would like that. Now, there's going to be a survey that pops up at the end, as well as in a follow-up email that you're going to receive. And the survey, in the survey, you're going to be able to request any and all certificates, as well as an opportunity to give us constructive feedback on how we did. We read all the comments, all the suggestions, and through your constructive feedback, we make improvements. So we welcome whatever you have to say. Okay, we're going to dive right in, and Mac's going to put up our first poll. So our first poll, the question is, has your organization experienced an uptick in ghosting or no-shows during your recent recruitment efforts? So the first answer is no uptick, or your choices, I should say, no uptick, slight uptick, and yes, we have a major problem. Now, I don't see the survey, so I'm hoping everybody else can. Oh, there it is. Or not survey, it's a poll. Well, survey poll. All right, so has your organization experienced an uptick in candidate ghosting or no-shows during the recruitment process? Your choices are no uptick, slight uptick, and yes, we have a major problem. So please select one, and we will share the results of that as soon as they come up.
I'm holding it because people are still voting.
Ah, good. Vote, vote, vote.
Which is slightly unusual. Usually it's very quick. All right.
That's okay. All right, and I still don't see, I don't see the results.
Okay, so we have 42% of the audience said they had a slight uptick in ghosting. 40% said they have a major problem.
All right, so let's say that again. 42%, oh, great, there it is, of 7, okay, 17% no, 42 slight, and 40 major problem. All right. So obviously, I would think if you have no issues with hiring, well, this is all on hiring. So hopefully we're going to make it easier or give you guys some great ideas to take away. All right, so our first question, and I'd like you, Jules, to answer this, please. So we can't get people to show up for the interview or their first day of work. Help us with some creative solutions, please.
Oh, yeah, this is a huge problem, it sounds like, which is really unfortunate, isn't it? Quite a change in culture from previous years. I mean, it's hard to imagine applying for a job and not showing up, or not showing up for your first day, but it's happening. So we can't really control candidates not showing up either for the interview or the first day of work. However, I'd highly recommend that you have clear and welcoming communication with those candidates from start to finish, all the way through. Don't get to that point and then check the box. You want to encourage that engagement and let them know that, you know, you're excited about their interest in your organization. Try to stay on top of that process, because I'll tell you what, it's busy out there. They have a lot of choices. You don't want to take too long. If you do, you risk losing great candidates and great talent going out the door. And I know that Ben and Jerry will have a lot to say about this as well. I would recommend a reminder email or maybe a call the day before the interview, the first day of work. Seems like a lot of hand-holding, doesn't it? But at this point, hey, whatever gets you there. The next idea, though it's not new, it's been successful in many organizations over the years, and you might need a major revamp, updating, formalization. What I'm talking about is your employee referral program. That can be one of your best avenues for success, right? And just engage and include your employees. Develop a clear and simple process for them to participate in, the steps, have some rewards, give them tools, make it exciting. And hopefully this will be important to your staff already, and then try to keep them included and in the loop as to what's going on. I would suggest rewarding them immediately. So if someone refers an individual to your organization, have a small cash or gift card to thank them and say, we really appreciate your help with this, regardless if they get an interview or not. Another, gift card if the candidate actually shows up for the interview, which is, again, it's just baffling, isn't it? We want to thank them for their interest in the organization. From there, you can increase that reward if you have a successful hire. So I would say both for that referring employee and that new hire, maybe $100 cash or gift card, just to say thank you. And maybe, it might be tough with your budgets, right? So look to donors or maybe a board member to help fund a recruitment fund for these costs. Another way might be providing that new hire and the referring employee lunch for a week. Just say, hey, welcome to our organization. We're going to have, lunches on us this week. You can add an additional bonus if the employee stays for 3 months and so forth. So maybe that hiring bonus, which we're seeing so prevalent out there right now in the industry, is kind of a two-prong. So they get some of that when they start, and then they get the rest if they stay on, just to kind of, wave that carrot out there a little bit. If the cash part is not feasible, because I know nonprofits, can have pretty tight budgets, maybe a day off, a bonus day off, or a half day off, something that, shows your appreciation to them. Another way to do that is give points, cash cards to employees who post your job openings on their social media outlets, and just, get that word out there. And then as well as employees that bring in an application, like here, I got this application from a colleague or a friend. And then I would say you could highlight those employees, either employee of the month or maybe in your newsletters. Have a raffle for them or a leaderboard. There's just ways to do little perks that encourages this engagement. And then you could look at maybe the department or the program that has the most referrals and throw them a pizza party or something to, to celebrate. Maybe it's, again, that paid time off. The gift card idea, you can also get discounts like at Costco. So just try to be creative. If you have points for prizes, then you could have things like t-shirts, hats, hoodies, things like that. And I would recommend you put your logo on it, because then you get to do a little extra marketing with those prizes. So I think the other two things I would look to is your current staff. Who are your star performers? Who do you want to encourage to maybe apply for that promotional opportunity? And as we know, sometimes employees just need that encouragement. They might be thinking about it and not feel totally, confident. And so just reminding them and encouraging them would be really important. I know we did that a lot in the nonprofit world when I worked for the nonprofit in Santa Cruz County, and it was amazing how many employees would say, "Oh gosh, I kind of wanted to, but thank you for the encouragement. Now I will." In addition, I think you see out there in the industry, people, organizations are paying for extra paid time off or vacation days, relocation packages, which that's a tough one with nonprofits. I know that. Anything you can do to really just, pull out all your tools out of your tool belt.
Great, thank you so much. I just want to read some comments from people. Several people said they have started to call candidates before the interview to remind them of the interview and discuss what they know about the organization or what they would like to know, and answer as many questions as possible that they may have before the interview. So I think that, calling, texting, emailing the day before, and of course, I think a call, I know a lot of people prefer to communicate over text, but I think that call is just a little bit more personal. So anyway, Jerry, Benjamin, any thoughts from you guys on creative ideas to get people to show up?
Yeah, if it's all right, Jerry, if I can chime in.
Go ahead.
A couple of things, will echo what Jules shared. Something to remember in the hiring process, the most important thing is building a relationship with your candidates. People don't accept jobs if they don't feel attached to the organization. And more than that, they don't accept jobs if they don't feel attached to the people. And what happens a lot is someone will send an email and they'll schedule the interview and they think, all right, I'm done. They'll show up. And that's just not the world we live in. And so it's really important to provide clear expectations with regards to what the process is going to be, both in terms of the hiring process, but also in terms of the communication expectations. And in doing that, you not only have to provide those clear, provide the clarity of what they should expect, but you actually have to deliver on it. So yes, calling the candidate the day before to confirm, really important. But it's also important, especially right now with the climate that we're living in, where people are dealing with illness. They're dealing with childcare issues. They're dealing with elder care issues. They're dealing with all of these distractions. They're dealing with for all I know, my kids can be out of school in a minute because somebody got sick in their class and you don't plan on it. So you have to let your candidates know that if there's an issue, you're willing to work around it and you have to be flexible for them. In addition to that, offer them alternative formats. It doesn't always have to be an in-person interview. You can hire people remote. And a perfect example of that is myself and Jerry. We didn't meet till we were working together for 4 months. That was the first time we met in person. You can hire people utilizing the technology that we have, a technology like this, Google, offers a free video platform. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with that. In addition, create touch points. So it's not just confirming the interview, but figure out a reason to reach out to that candidate. When you do that initial phone screen, find out what they're interested in, share that, build that rapport. When you are scheduling them, you tell them they're going to meet with this person and this person. Follow up 2 days later. Here are the bios I said I would send you. The more that we can build that relationship and the more we can create touch points, the more that candidate trusts us and the more likely we are to have success with them. And, I know that a lot of this isn't new. And a lot of it, honestly, is not that creative, but it appeals to what people want, and they want to be recognized. They want to be valued. And there are two other pieces of this for me. One, it's moving quickly. If you're not ready to interview and hire, don't phone screen people. Don't advertise the job.
Right.
When you have a hiring process that lasts north of 60 days, it's too long. And you have to be ready, because while you're scheduling interviews 2 weeks out or even a week out, somebody else is doing it in a day. And that's really important to remember because people have options. And we're not just competing against other nonprofits, but we're competing against for-profits as well. And finally, and this was something that I know is really frustrating, but we have to remember we're working with people, and you will always have people ghost you, always, even in the best times, even, and I remember I was hiring, for a for-profit, and I'm hiring people to write software, large salaries, great benefits, you still got ghosted. And it's important to remember that with recruitment versus other types of sales activities, a computer never wakes up in the morning and decides I'm not going to work. A computer never decides I just don't want to be bothered today. But we are dealing with people. And if somebody doesn't show up for an interview or for a first day, before we write them off, we have to call them. We have to, and I don't email this, I don't text this, I call, because I have had situations where there have been emergencies and people have been at the hospital, or I have had people, that have had a car accident on the way in. And when you're dealing with an ambulance, the police, and then the emergency room, you just glad to be alive, and you're not really focused on the day's events. So exactly. We have to have that flexibility and that understanding. And again, it's having that rapport, because even if this person doesn't get the job, but they've had this relationship, they're going to refer people. And those people can either be other job candidates, they can be donors, they can be members. And so that high touch, relationship focused approach is so much more critical now, because that level of competition and that level of option for job seekers is really at a level that we haven't seen in a long time.
Right. Thank you so much, both of you. Yeah. I just want to read a comment. Somebody says, you are so right. None of this is new. It's unfortunate that the reality of most companies is that we simply do not have the people power to do many of these suggestions. And I think that's a frustration, but thank you for commenting. And both of you, thank you for giving some more thought to how we can increase that engagement with our candidates and all that good stuff. I also want to remind people that we do have a question up in our chat box. So please take a moment to read it and respond and share your information with everybody. All right. So our second question.
Actually, before we move on, is there? I just want to see if there's anything Jerry has that Jules and I.
Sorry, Jerry.
It's okay. It's all good. It's all good. Well, really, I mean, yeah. Benjamin covered a lot of that, but really, what the thing that I would probably emphasize really is just around building a relationship with the candidate early, not wasting a lot of time if you're not ready to hire. Speed is critical, and turnaround is really important, right? So we have candidates that are applying for roles with nonprofits and for-profits. The bar is very, very, very low in terms of responding back to candidates. Common courtesy has gone out the window. So if you just have even an automated process to acknowledge when people apply for your role, for me, when I was scheduling phone interviews with candidates, I sent them a link to my calendar. They could schedule these at their convenience. And so there's no ghosting if they're scheduling a time on their calendars and it's on your calendar. It was for less than 15 minutes to a half an hour, so it wasn't unused commitment of time. And in those calls, we would cover the position, why they're applying, what they know about the organization. I explore people's why, especially in nonprofits, early and often, because that's the differentiator between a candidate applying for a nonprofit role or a for-profit role. They're not the same kinds of jobs. You're not looking for the same kind of candidates. The motivations are different, and people are leaving the for-profit world for nonprofits for lots of reasons. One being that they want their work to be meaningful.
Absolutely.
So we'll stop there, and I think that's really will help with the the whole ghosting thing. It's such a surprise to me that
It's just
that
rude.
number's so high. So
Yeah.
so there's that.
Well,
So
and I wanted to share, thank you so much. Wanted to share what some folks are saying. Let's see. One person says that they have started an incentive program. Another person says, we have tried the constant contact and it hasn't helped. Somebody else says, I honestly believe that if you have the right technology, you can always send a text to remind them that they are important to you. Someone else said, definitely follow up, reminders, try to make that connection that you all have suggested. And then somebody else has said, definitely speed has really helped us. I continue to remind hiring managers to move quickly. Previously, we might take a week or two to hire, and now we try and keep it under a week from phone screen to offer. Wow. It definitely helps when candidates know that we're serious. Nice input. Thank you. All right. So our second question is, we're having a hard time finding talent or candidates. Any new ideas? And this is beyond finding new places to advertise, like public libraries or making a hiring video with your staff. What other thoughts and ideas do our esteemed panel have? So I'm going to start with you, Jerry.
great. So I'm gonna preface this with, like, I may sound like a commercial for a product, because I've been doing this a while. So in the early days of recruiting, it was really hard to find people. That was a real challenge. That challenge really isn't the problem right now. Finding people is never, excuse me, it's not the issue anymore. With tools like LinkedIn, all these other recruiting tools that are out there where candidates are posting their resumes, finding people is not the problem or the challenge. It's giving them a compelling reason to talk to you, and having the ability to sort through that talent accurately and efficiently. So here's what the commercial part is going to show up. It's going to sound like this. So I'm a big fan of LinkedIn Recruiter. It's a great tool. There's lots of different ways you can actually target specific candidates for specific roles. You can do customized campaigns to target people that are really passive folks, inactive folks. But that's, I mean, again, there's lots of different ways you can do this, but I'm gonna sound like a computer or a commercial, because there's nothing really new under the sun around that stuff. I mean, I think technology is, again, like I said earlier, finding people is not the problem. It's connecting with the right people and giving those people a compelling reason to have a conversation with you. And so that can be done in your Facebook or whatever social media your company is using. Every company, nonprofit or otherwise, has a presence in social media. It's a great way to message who you are, what you're looking for, what you do, and it's a great place for people to find information about you. And that's talent that comes to you. So you can also, there's ways to farm that talent or that information when people inquire about your company or even do searches for you. You can capture that information and reach out to them directly. It's a very effective quote unquote recruiting tool. So that's another way that I've used and still use to contact people, to find talent. Like I said, so again, the talent is all out there. It's giving them a compelling reason to talk to you.
That's great. I do want to say that I think a lot of folks, a lot of our nonprofits, a large portion of their staff are that front line and who may not have LinkedIn profiles yet. So it's finding ways to connect with maybe folks with no experience or who are young and just starting college or that sort of thing. And I do want to share before we move on to other ones of you that might. All right, so let's see. Let me move the bar up here. Okay, so we have one comment. This is the world of hunting for talent. We are no longer in the world of recruiting. Recruiting talent is casting a line and hoping to catch a bite. Headhunting is about using internal networks, community organizations, and finding ways to broaden your personal network. Digital social media is a good way to get there. Also, you want to be able to tell your story. Creating a recruiting brand, and sell it, celebrate it, and leverage your organization's purpose to find people that connect to you. Another person says, my biggest issue is funding. As a nonprofit, what we're able to offer for an hourly rate of pay is not even in the same stadium as what for-profits can pay. True, very true. So we're not even having people apply because our pay rate is so low. Before this hiring issue was a thing, we were more apt to get candidates, but now it's almost impossible. All right, so
good. So this is great. I'd like to add to that. So this is great. So again, it's not just about the money. And I can understand that nonprofits have a certain amount of funds, but I think what I've known for sure is that there's this huge exodus. That the whole resigning thing is a real thing post-pandemic. People like looking at their careers, looking at their jobs, their work-life balance, and they're looking at other options. And they're leaving companies for the ability to work from home, more time off for their families, equitable or good or solid benefits, childcare benefits. All these things are reasons why people are leaving the quote-unquote for-profit world for nonprofits or companies that value taking care of their employees and their families. So companies with very liberal PTO or flexible work hours or flexible work weeks, those actually are extremely valuable to lots of candidates. So if you're talking about compensation, it's important to talk about what total comp looks like. It's not just about what your hourly rate is or how many days of vacation you get. It's everything. It's the whole comprehensive total comp package. And that is something that we don't always do. I think when we're focusing on attracting talent, it's like, well, we're not paying what they're paying. Well, there's a reason for that. But what you are offering is, around flexibility and time. Those are intangibles that are very, very valuable to specific kinds of candidates. And again, you're not going to attract everybody. You don't want the same candidates that Google is getting or Apple. You may not want those people for lots of reasons. Trust me. And staffing is important. It's critical. I get this, especially a nonprofit. And you have a limited amount of resources, and you want to hire the right kinds of people to carry the message and the mission that you are focused on. So these are real challenges. I don't mean to sound like this is flip or easy. It's not. These are really hard issues to deal with. And again, I think you have to play to your strengths. And from what my experience is, strength is not necessarily going to be what you pay an hour or a year, but what you offer in total compensation in terms of time off and other services you provide to your employees it's really important. I don't think we talk about it enough.
Right, exactly. Benjamin, you want to add to that?
Absolutely, and I think the comments there's a lot of truth there. I think what Jerry said, there's a lot of truth, but I do think there are some things that we can do. And whomever made that comment about, just posting a job and getting applicants, you're right. That's not the way the world works right now. No. It's not an environment where you can be passive. You have to reach to people, but you can go beyond leveraging LinkedIn. And that's a great site. It's where I start all of my searches, is either in the applicant tracking system, because those are people that wanted to work here at some point, or I go to LinkedIn. But beyond that, especially for frontline workers, and I started my career working at group homes for children with various conditions at home that prevented them from being there. So I was that frontline worker. And this has been a problem that's been affecting organizations, for the last, I've been involved for the last 30 years. It's not new, but we can think about it differently. First we have to think of ourselves as a nonprofit community, and we have to understand that if I'm an organization that does youth care and you're an organization that does workforce development, there's a really, really good argument to be made to partner. Start training people for my jobs, and I'll refer people to you. We have to start thinking about creating the workforce that we need. We also have to start looking at places that we don't typically look at. We don't typically think to partner with veteran services organizations. We don't typically partner or even leverage job boards, resume boards for organizations with people with different abilities. We just don't. We also think about our jobs, all right, it's 40 hours a week, 9 to 5, but we don't have to, but we can switch that. And we can actually switch it in a way that monetarily, in terms of benefits, is actually more advantageous for the organization. Why do you need one person? Why not look at, we have a whole slew of people that have left the workforce to retire, but that does not mean they don't want to work. It just doesn't mean they don't want to work every day, 40 hours a week with all that stress. Let's start looking at splitting a job into two, having 2 people at 20 hours a week. Let's start thinking about these things with a different mindset. And in doing that, we're able to appeal to people that we couldn't appeal to before, especially when we look at that retiree sector of able and interested workers. Those are people that are typically, if you're retired, typically there is some kind of other financial supports.
Right.
And there are some people that need full-time, but it is an avenue to look at. And like Jerry was saying, we have to start thinking about offsetting obstacles, offsetting the childcare issue. If you're an organization that does childcare, offer it for your staff. We have to bring our missions home. And I think that is really critical to helping to solve these problems, because if people know they can bring their kid with them, or, if they're in a situation, and this was me last year, I'm starting to build a business and I'm homeschooling my children. Right. They're in the office with me. They're on calls with me. Every once in a while, they're interrupting a call to go, Dad, what is this word, as they're doing something.
Right, and I think we've gotten used to that.
Yes, but we have to stop thinking linearly and stop thinking about how we did things 2 years ago and 3 years ago. And we have to start really leveraging the resources that we have. People are leaving the workforce, let's talk to them. People are coming out of the military, they need jobs and they have skill sets, but there are stereotypes that we have to get over.
Right, and I think things like working mom, stay-at-home moms that want to re-enter the workforce, and may not be able to work full, 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day. And I do want to, so somebody has said that flexible hours, more vacation, fewer hours have been a huge draw. We've gotten some really amazing candidates for whom this is a big draw. So everything you guys are saying is resonating, and some of the organizations that we have today are already putting those things into practice. Jules, I think you had a few things that you wanted to share as well.
Sure. Jerry and Benjamin covered it so well, and I just want to piggyback on that. Just really tap into your resources, your stakeholders, your community partners, so other nonprofits, the Vets Association, your colleges. You can look into internship programs. In the past, I had interns, and then once they graduate, they apply. Volunteers, you might have some awesome volunteers that really are connected to your mission, love the programs, and they might want to work. The idea of job sharing, maybe part-time, things like that, if your budget can support it, even offering benefits to those part-time workers on some level can be huge. And I think that you'll reap those benefits, you know, twofold by doing so, because you'll have happy workers, happy employees. Word of mouth, make sure you tap into your board of directors. They're already tied to your mission. They already support your organization, both, you know, mentally, financially, emotionally. Tap into them, see who they know that, you know, that they can recommend and send your way. So, and I just think also remembering once those employees are on board, again, you have to continue that engagement, make sure there's connectedness with other staff, they're getting the proper tools and training, and, you know, and then that employee acknowledgement and recognition, like Jerry mentioned. We just, like Benjamin said, a lot of it's not new. But it's just, you know, really tapping into that and using all of our tools that we can, because, you know, the employees, boy, this world's their oyster right now. So
Right. And I think even going back to, Jules, you mentioned this a while ago, going back to your donors and asking for donations to build that incentive fund, or your referral campaigns, or writing a grant for some of these things. So somebody else has said, we have had great success with interns, not just from colleges, but from area trade schools as well, that we've partnered with. So awesome. You know, keep the ideas coming. So we worked in and talked about our third question, but I do want to mention this, and Benjamin, I think I want you to talk about this. There was an online survey that was conducted by the National Council of Nonprofits, great resource, to gauge the scope of the workforce shortage problems for nonprofit organizations and determine the impact on their ability to advance their mission or missions. 8 out of 10 nonprofits identified salary competition, you know, those Amazon's, Targets, etc., as a factor preventing them from filling job openings. And nearly a quarter of those stated the inability to find childcare. And that has drastically affected recruitment and retention efforts. Benjamin, what are your thoughts on that?
The thoughts are, this is something that's not surprising. Well, you know, and I'm going to address the childcare issue first. If we want people to give to us, we have to give to them. We have to understand what their needs are, and we have to provide solutions. And this is something that I was alluding to with the last answer, where we have to be a community. If there's an organization that is a child services organization, then we have to figure out how we can create partnerships. We may have to start thinking about how our organization, which may not focus on this, does that. If people have to just choose between taking care of their child and going to work, they have to take care of their child. One, that's the law. And two, you know, like, let's remember, we are people that are focused on missions, on care, on doing things. That starts in our house. And this is where I really emphasize, we have to take our missions home. And so we have to provide those opportunities. And that can definitely be through partnership. It can definitely be self-engaged. It can definitely be through flexible work options, but it's definitely something that we have to look at. Now, in terms of the money, and this is where we have to remember, one, nonprofit is a tax structure, it's not a business structure. We have to remember that. And we have to remember that we no longer compete in a world with just other nonprofits. Mission is great. And like Jerry said, that mission is something that people will try to attach to. But if it's, I work for this mission and I can't put a roof over my head and food on my table, versus I work for something that I don't really care about, but it pays the bills, most people are going to where they can pay the bill. And so we have to start thinking about things differently. And yes, having an employee branding program, is great. And speaking to our cultures is great. But at the end of the day, we have to start thinking about hiring differently. We have to start thinking about, if we can't provide competitive salaries, then we have to restructure our budgets. And we have to remember, without our people, we don't have programs. We don't have missions. We have nothing. And so we have to start looking at salaries first. We have to start looking at talent acquisition, recruitment as the #1 priority of every organization. And that's fiscally as well as in terms of our resource allocation. And that may mean for a while, we have to right size the organization to allow this extra money for salaries. It may mean that we have to go to our donors. It means we have to rethink how we do things, because the days of, well, I'm just really passionate about what they do, that doesn't lead to a hire anymore. And this is a conversation that I've had for years in this industry, because when you pay people and they don't have to worry about their out of work responsibilities and issues, they are so much better on the job. When they don't have to worry about paying their rent or buying groceries, or even, and we've all been in this situation, and especially with some of our missions where they are really personally draining, and it's really hard. Like, I've worked with abused children. That is really stressful. And there are days you just want to go home and get a pizza. I shouldn't have to worry about being able to do that. And this is where we have to change our focus, and we have to decide that paying our people is the #1 priority, because without them, you have no mission.
Right.
You have nothing without people. And one of the reasons people are leaving the nonprofit sector, it's not because they don't care. It's not because they don't want to be part of what we're doing. They're leaving because they know they can do a job with less responsibility, less stress, and twice as much money.
Right.
And that's where, and this is hard, but that's where we have to change the shift of our mindset. And we have to change how we allocate and how we value our own people, so that that money is available. And like I said, it may mean that we don't expand to another program right away. It may mean that we leverage our board members differently. It may mean that we revisit our structures and where we allocate funds to.
Right.
And for our foundations and for our corporate partners, we have to start thinking about how are we going to provide our service providers with the funding that they need to do these, because it's now no longer enough just to fund a program, but there needs to be resources and there needs to be unrestricted funding to allow for this.
Right. So we've got to be able to look at the whole package and see where we can cut costs, because bottom line is, if the people who work with us and for us to complete our missions, if they can't cover their basic costs, they're not, that's not a viable thing. So I want to move on. We're getting close to the end of time. But what I do want to share, so somebody is giving you a shout out, Benjamin. Absolutely. I love what Benjamin is saying about compensation. So great. So we're going to move on. Jerry, this question, we're going to start with you. We don't have a smooth process from start to finish for hiring. We also don't have set questions for interviews and/or communicating with candidates, and we've hit on some of that. What should we do? How do we fix this?
Wow. Well, there's that's a big one. So I think first of all, what you do, what we suggested you do, is really look at what your mission is and what you're looking for people to do, and formulate your quote unquote interview questions around that. What are your values? What is the mission? And so, if you don't have a process, you got to have a process. Like it's like building a house with no plan. Like
Right.
you just have to do that. So you have to figure out what is your building and formulate a plan to that. I mean, it sounds very simple, and I get that, but it's not always easy to do that as well. But it's not rocket science, and we've been doing this for a long time. So, gee, it's like, so I can go so many places here. Like, where do you start? It's like, well, you start by starting, number one. If you don't have interview questions, why not?
Right.
You know, what is that? I mean, so why are you winging? There's no reason to wing stuff like this. I mean, there's so many resources within the nonprofit world about just pulling down questions like, how do you do this? This is pretty, there's pretty turnkey stuff. And again, I don't mean to minimize this, but it's like, if you don't have interview questions, so what are you trying to find out from your candidate?
Right.
What
And how
are
are
you
you going to have
trying
a
to
fair
accomplish?
process? Right.
Exactly. How do you weigh candidates? I mean, if you're about diversity, equity, and inclusion, then be about that. And
Right.
you can't be about that if you don't have a process. It's
Right.
like, oh, it's like the question makes my head hurt. Like, what do we do? What? Like, come on.
I'll tell you what's scary though is when an organization doesn't have a process. To me, the scariest part isn't the questions and the conversations. It's the compliance and it's the legality, especially around DEI issues, especially about offers, especially around making sure that you're holding resumes as long as you're supposed to. I mean, there's a whole legal side of this that we have to worry about. And, you know, Jerry's right. Just start. And if you need, ask someone, ask another organization, ask a partner. He's absolutely right like that. But there has to be structure to it, not just for the practical application of hiring, but so that you don't have a visit from an auditor and finds it shut down.
Right. So I know that Jules, from an HR perspective, you've got a really good idea of how this should work. I want you to answer, but I do want to let, somebody has said that this town hall is making me feel great. We're on the right track. We just found monies to bring our lowest level folks up. So from a compensation point of view. So thank you, Benjamin and Jerry. And somebody else says, does any of the panelists have recruiting tracking systems that they absolutely love and would recommend for a small nonprofit? But I don't want you to answer that just yet. So Jules, I want to hear about structure for this whole hiring process that makes it a little bit more smooth.
Absolutely.
And legally compliant.
The comments and congratulations to those of you who are already doing so many great things. So culture, remember your culture from start to finish through the whole recruitment process. You want to be engaging and active listening and be encouraging. And then you want that structure. I mean, it's like Jerry said, it's like building the house without a plan. You have to have that structure. And I know that Benjamin and Jerry have some great ideas, and we at HR Services are also very happy to help you with, you know, templates for interview questions, you know, process documents, kind of step by step, so you can check them off and make sure you don't miss anything, both with compliance, you know, just having a successful process as a whole. And you're so busy, you know, with your mission, that this is part of it. It folds in. So tying it to your mission, your core values. In the past, in the nonprofit world, I had questions in the interview for all positions that were open that tied to our core values, and we told them what they were and had them pick one and say why they chose that one, why they felt connected to that. So try to, you know, make that relationship and do the relationship building and make that connection. It's important to be consistent, equitable, and respectful. So you have the DE&I, and you also want to keep those records confidential. So all very key. And then don't forget it, once you get through that, keep that going in the onboarding process. It doesn't just stop once that person's hired. So just really including that throughout the entire process itself. And you know, like I said, we're here to support you. I just went through a recruitment process, which was a wonderful experience. And you know, there's a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross. You know, it's key. So
And you got to do it. Right.
Mhm.
Thank you. So somebody has asked, high level, short answer, what are the most important elements of a hiring process? What do you think, Jerry?
The most important elements of a hiring process, to remember that the hiring and retention process starts at the very first conversations that you're having with a candidate. That's key. Making sure that that you're very transparent about what your compensation is. I think it's important. And I think making sure that the candidates know that you're there to support them. Number one, that they're important, and that onboarding is the last part of this stuff, and that sometimes gets kind of muddy and murky, and that's when you lose people.
Right.
It's like you do all this work to find candidates, you know, get them excited about a role, interview them, and then the onboarding process just goes to pot, and then it's just the whole candidate experience is lost at that part. So I think just keeping all those things at the top of the list, very important. That's my quick down and dirty off the top of my head.
Great. So I'm just going to add that one of the most important things I think you need every time you hire is know what you're looking for in a candidate, in a new hire. Know what you want, know what you don't want. So to me, that's one of the most important things, one of them. I'm going to have Benjamin, I'm going to have you answer the applicant tracking system question offline. We'll Benjamin and Jerry and Jules, if you have input on that, we'll send an email out later to everybody. I do want to share, somebody says, if people are interviewing, take the initiative to create the interview questions with the manager. Yes, great practice that will benefit from the hire that you are trying to obtain. Interview questions cannot and should not be robotic. Exactly. Nonprofit is in line with a purpose. If you are not asking questions around purpose, that's an issue. So yes, you guys have the great stuff. There's no need to make things up. You know, use situations that happen every day. I do want to, we've got 2 minutes left, and I do want to ask this last question. We're not going to get to all the questions folks submitted, and I apologize for that. All right, so Jules, how should employers handle vaccination requirements for new hires? Our office building in New York City requires people working in the building to be vaccinated. So what do you do, Jules?
Oh boy, how much time do you have?
You've got 1 minute.
I know, in 1 minute. Oh goodness. Well, have a written plan. You want to have that in place. It's required. You know, this is huge. And let's keep in mind, folks, that not everybody agrees with this mandate, okay? And so there's going to be a lot of feelings around it. And so try to be sensitive to that. But also very clear communication and be consistent with how you implement that. You want to make sure that if with your new hires, that you have those conversations with them up front, so it doesn't come as a surprise to them.
As they're interviewing, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
when you're interviewing, you need to let them know, and let them know what that looks like. If you know, if it means you have to be fully vaccinated before the first day of work, that's not just like I got my second shot yesterday. That's 2 weeks past, right? So educate gently but firmly, and let them know. I mean, you might even want to put it on your job descriptions just so that it's out there out front.
Or even in your ad. I mean, if you're posting an ad somewhere on LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever,
Yeah, it's just, I mean, this is huge, right? All while you're super busy and you're trying to take care of everything from a program service level. So, you know, hold on tight, and you need your executive team, your management team to be aligned on this and make sure that, you know, you have a plan and you work together, make sure you give time, you know, provide time off so that folks can be in compliance too.
Thank you. Thank you. So we
You're
have a couple
welcome.
more questions that we will address offline and get that information to you. I want to thank you all so much for joining us. I hope that you are all leaving with an idea or two or something that's going to spark further conversation about recruitment, talent acquisition, hiring, all that good stuff in your organizations. I'm hoping that next month you will join us for, we're hosting a preview of coming attractions surrounding employment law. You know, what we saw this year and what's coming down the pike for 2022. And this will be hosted and provided by Bruce Sarche from Littler on the 8th of December. If you'd like to learn more about how to subscribe to our HR services program, here's some information. You can contact me here. If you want more detailed information on talent acquisition and some help, Jerry and Benjamin are ready to help. And so you can contact Benjamin here, his phone number and his email address. So thank you again to all of you who are already working with us, and for all of you who have joined. Nice, thank you so much. Some really nice comments to our panelists. Thank you all for your kind words and for participating and all that. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your week and holiday season. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.